Today we have Brian Marks with us, Senior Estimator for the Korte Company, and he was the main guy for the evaluation of Estimator and other estimating softwares for his company. So with that, Brian, I'll go ahead and let you take it away.
All right, thank you. As Holly said, my name is Brian Marks with the Korte Company. I am a senior estimator here. I've got about 18 years in the construction, with a little over half of that being with Korte. Started out in the field with a small general contractor, kind of worked my way into the office, and then spent a little bit of time in project management, but the majority of my time has been in pre-construction at an estimating role. So just wanted to do a quick little blurb about who the Korte Company is for those who may not know who we are. We are a national design build construction company. We do have an in-house architectural group that we utilize on some of our project pursuits. Next year in 2018, we will be celebrating our 60th year in business. We do have 5 offices that support our pursuit of projects all across the country. Our operating office and where the company was founded is in Highland, Illinois, about 30 miles east of St. Louis. Our corporate headquarters is located in St. Louis, Missouri. We got an office in Oklahoma, an office in Houston, Texas, and then another office out in the Las Vegas, Nevada area. So if anyone's interested in any more information on Korte, I got our web link down at the bottom, so feel free to visit our website and kind of see the kind of work that we pursue and a little bit more about who we are. It's a very informative website. So with that, we'll get into the main reason of the webinar today is to get into why Korte felt a need to change the way we were doing our estimating process. And the main reason was we were looking to replace MC² as our estimating platform. So after RIB had acquired MC², there was less support being put into improving MC², and after a little while, we felt like there was a need for us to go ahead and make the change. So we started looking into finding that replacement estimating platform for us. Then we're also looking to better leverage current technology. We've seen a lot of the advancement in 2D and 3D takeoff in the last few years, and then also how that's integrating into the estimating software available out there. And then also looking to position ourselves to leverage future technologies as more and more data becomes available, trying to put ourselves in a place to where we can data mine, whether it's models or other sources of data, and use that to enhance our ability on the pre-construction side to put together estimates faster and quicker, and allow us to more time to dialogue with the subcontractors and make sure we're getting good and accurate bids that way. So with that, we kind of worked into the evaluation process of what was available out there, and I wanted to talk about briefly how we went about doing that. For the Korte Company, we chose to have the single person lead up the evaluation process, see what was available, and kind of report back to the group. Kind of where I became the man was I am our current MC² administrator, so I had the most knowledge about how the background of how MC² worked for us. So it was just a good lead in for me to go ahead and take charge and run with it. So we have a group of roughly about 17 estimators right now, so not a large group as some of the others who might be out there looking at it. So rather than trying to take the time of all the group, we felt it was best for a single point of contact. So starting right around the beginning of 2016 was when we started looking at some of the programs that are out there. I started accessing some programs. There was quite a few to choose from. I narrowed it down to 4 that we want to do a little bit more in-depth hands-on with that. We became familiar with DESTINI Estimator through the fact that we were already a DESTINI profiler user, and once Estimator was made public, added that to our list, and also looked at WinEst. We revisited Sage. We were a Timberline user prior to switching over to MC Squared back in 2007. And then also we looked at and evaluated CostOS, mainly because there was some ties to MC Squared there as well, and wanted to see how that transition would be. So with that, once I kind of did trials on the programs, analyzed them, kind of got to the pros and cons of all of those, I drafted a kind of a questionnaire to send out to the estimating group. We did that right around October of 2016, and we looked at the 4 main categories and had some subset questions of those to help gauge what everyone was looking for features. So we were looking at the database and how that was constructed, how takeoff was handled by the programs, and then how we could kind of do data maintenance, and then also the summary output of the estimating. So we sent out a questionnaire similar to the one that's currently displayed on the screen right now. So we got the 4 main categories there. And then, like I said, we used a 1 through 5 ranking of each of the sub questions. Sent that out to the group and did a quick little easy analysis of kind of where the database, the takeoff, and the summary and the other items came in at, so we can kind of use them as the priorities, and when we were looking at each of the estimating programs to see how they best fit with those higher ranking priorities for us. So with that, we move forward to our evaluation, and one of the things that kind of stood out with DESTINI Estimator and the Beck Technologies group is this exploration process. So not only did I just have a trial run of 30 days or 60 days of DESTINI Estimator, the Beck Technologies group actually brought me and a couple other people into their office in early January 2017 to kind of do this exploration process. So we picked a couple of us that came down. They got us set up with the DESTINI suite on our computers, and then we spent a 2-day exploration where they stepped us through the process, kind of like they would do for a general training process, and then also allowed us to provide feedback and had an open dialogue through that exploration process. So we thought that was very beneficial, opposed to just having the software made available from us and kind of working on our own. So that was one of the things that kind of stood out from Beck Technologies. So a couple other deciding factors as to why we did decide to move forward with DESTINI Estimator. The integration. We currently, like I said, we work in MC Squared. We are on-screen takeoff users. For those of us who dabble with the 3D takeoff, when we can get models from our architectural group, utilize Navisworks to try and use quantity takeoff and get some quantities that way. So with DESTINI Estimator, bringing 2D and 3D right inside the program allowed us to consolidate into essentially a single platform for all of our estimating needs. no longer have to worry about data entry error while we're getting information from either a Navisworks file or from a on-screen takeoff. So one of the other deciding factors is innovation. With DESTINI Estimators still being a relatively new product out there, and Beck Technologies and investing in both enhancing the program and keeping it current. We saw that as a big factor moving forward, that the product wasn't only going to be as it is now, but will be improving with both our input and input from other customers of Beck Technology. So, and then the last piece to kind of picking them was the implementation process. A group from Beck Technologies actually came up to our headquarters, sat down with a group of us. We talked about it. They put together a detailed plan of how the implementation was going to be put together, provided a statement of work. We got outlined 3 different phases of the implementation, which I will get into here in a minute. And one of the other things that they were able to provide that we didn't really see from others is a firm price for what that implementation would be. So instead of buying a bank of hours for customizing a database or assemblies or anything else to make it the program Korte specific, they addressed that similar to how we like to look at projects. They identified a scope of work and gave a firm price for delivering that scope of work. So with that, kind of wanted to step into our where we're at with our implementation. We are in the process of wrapping up phase 1 of that implementation plan. It started back in April when we signed on to become DESTINI Estimator users. The first step was kind of moving into due diligence, some of Korte specifics, unit of measures, reports, any spreadsheets that we use for output or summarizing our data. And then we quickly moved into customizing a database that was Korte specific. So that started with myself on the Korte side, data mining our MC² database, putting it into an Excel file that then the guys over at Beck Technologies could work with and help start setting that up to be brought into their program. And all along, it's been a real good collaboration between Korte and the Beck Tech group. Sometimes Korte was taking the lead with me, being the main point and pulling some of the information, and then I was able to transition that over, and then Beck Tech guys would take the lead, and they would be the main focus, and it was just kind of a back and forth with weekly check-ins, or sometimes more often than that, working with the data and truly customizing it for Korte's needs. So kind of after we got the database in place, and one of the other things that Beck Technologies was really influential in and really helped us out in is we decided this was the good time for us to transition out of master format or out of CSI format 2016 and into the master format 48 division. With that, we also worked with our accounting group to make a similar transition so that our accounting system aligned with the estimating, and then that would feed into project management. They also were getting trained on how to view the data in master format. So Beck Technologies was really helpful in making that transition fairly easy for us. Kind of the next piece, once we got the database established, was move into assemblies. Basically, we looked at what we had in MC² and looked at a few others, and we improved those. So we're going to end up with about 20 assemblies. Most of the work that we look at it from a self-perform standpoint would be concrete and some of your traditional carpentry items. Everything else is pretty well subcontracted, and depending on where we're at in the country, a lot of even the general contracting trades will be ultimately subcontracted, and we take on the role of more of a design build construction manager and not so much self-performing work. Then we kind of looked at the dashboards and some of the reports from a report standpoint. We didn't have to get a whole lot of custom reports. They made a few tweaks, added the Korte logo to some other reports that they kind of already had established. And then from a dashboard standpoint, one of the nice features with DESTINI Estimator is the dashboard working as an Excel emulator, similar to what we saw with the summary and MC squared. So we're able to easily bring in our MC squared customized summary, make some connections inside of the dashboard, and it was really easy for the estimators to see some familiarity once they got to the dashboard, because it was something that looked very familiar with our current MC squared summary. With that, the phase 1 implementation at the end of October, first week November, we moved into training and did training for the bulk of our office people across all the offices. So I think we have a couple others that we still need to get trained, but for the most part, we are able to consolidate and do a focus training in 3 of our offices to get all of our people trained. So outside of a few assemblies hanging out there that we are working on, we are pretty well complete with phase 1 implementation. So our group has kind of been tasked with trying to move forward with any new pursuits inside of Estimator, and but they are still finalizing anything that was started in MC squared. We are going to allow everyone to go ahead and finish up those in MC squared just for transition standpoint. So with that, kind of what we got next is moving into the phase 2 part of our statement of work and implementation. We're hoping to work on this first quarter of 2018, and that is to train everyone up on the capabilities of the 2D takeoff and 3D takeoff inside of DESTINI Estimator. So phase 1 was focused on basically replacing MC squared from the estimating standpoint. We didn't want to inundate the group with all the features at one time, so that's why we kind of introduced this small phase 2 implementation. And once everyone gets a little more comfortable using the estimator from the estimating standpoint, then show them how they can do 2D and 3D takeoff moving forward. Then the last phase of our implementation, which actually is a kind of an option that we intend on incorporating probably right around second quarter of 2018, maybe a little later, is actually to enhance the use of DESTINI Profiler. Currently, we have a power user of Profiler that focuses mainly on the healthcare sector. We also have a user out in our Las Vegas office that has been using Profiler a little bit more for some of their negotiated pursuits. The intent here with the implementation is to expand upon some other building types outside of healthcare and build up those within Profiler. Look to train a few more people in Profiler so that we can do some of our conceptual estimating with Profiler, then with the ultimate goal of and the benefit of the Profiler estimator integration is be able to quickly migrate Profiler estimates into estimator, and then have the ability of using the comparison tools to show the owners how their costs have changed from schematic design to design development and on up into construction design. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward into questions. So I'll open it back up to Holly to provide any questions that anyone might have came up with.
Thanks, Brian. Please do feel free to continue typing questions in as they come. We do have a few more minutes to finish this presentation off here. Brian, I do have one question here. So I know you mentioned, you were using MC squared for pretty close to a decade, I believe, and then Timberline before that. Was there any resistance to this change, with all the different offices, and kind of how did y'all overcome the objections of changing platforms?
I'd say there was probably less resistance on moving forward with this change than there was back when we switched from MC squared from Timberline. That was right around the time I hired in with Korte, so I never actually was familiar with Timberline, but I know there was a lot of people who were nervous about moving forward. I feel like we did a pretty good job in our training and implementation this time to make everyone comfortable. I'm sure there will be some people who will be a little apprehensive moving forward. We're hoping in this period of time before the end of the year that guys will maybe even have the opportunity to take a small sample estimate in MC squared, recreate it in an estimator, and see that they are getting pretty well the same results, and that will make them more comfortable moving forward. But I think all in all, we've seen some of the limitations in MC squared, and I think the moving is being embraced a lot easier by the whole group.
Okay. And then I know you mentioned, the exploration being one of the differentiators, I guess, besides the other software. How many people, did Korte send to that exploration, and was that a chance to kind of get everyone on the same page, or was it just you and someone else there kind of learning more about the software?
It was pretty much, well, myself having been exposed to Estimator. We brought one other estimator along. We had brought in our power user from Profiler because he had a long relationship with Beck Technology, so that was kind of a familiar face from both sides, from the Korte side and from the Beck Technology side. So we had three of us. We had a business development guy who's down in the Texas area, so it was pretty easy for him to kind of come in and see it. So from a user standpoint, it was just really two of us estimators.
Okay. And then we are having a lot of questions here trickle in, so if we don't get to them all, we will definitely follow up with an email or phone call after the presentation. I know you talked about phase 1 being complete towards the end of October, so what was the overall duration of kind of getting the database up and running and the training?
The database was probably about 4 months or so of kind of back and forth. I think a lot of that was due to us switching from CSI 16 division to master format 48 division. There was a lot of recoding of our data line items, trying to find the right spot that they were transitioning to in the master format. So we probably spent a few months getting that part going. Then we spent probably 3 months or so, maybe not quite, working on assemblies. Like I said, we still got a few more of those to finish up. Probably one of the things that we probably should have focused on a little bit more is for the self-perform work that we did do. We did let the crews and the rate stuff kind of hang towards the end, and we probably should have moved that up a little bit further into it and incorporated that a little bit more into building out the database as opposed to just coding and classifying the line items in the database.
Okay, and then kind of on that same topic about the duration, before y'all even decided on Estimator, how long was your evaluation process of the others and kind of getting the questionnaire feedback and everything else?
We kind of did off and on for the most of 2016. I think, I can't remember which program I looked at first in 2016, but everyone kind of gave you a 30 to 60 day trial. So from January 2016 till about probably September of 2016, I evaluated each of the 4 programs when time allowed. Obviously, trying to keep doing my daily job, I wasn't able to dedicate, just a whole 8 months to evaluating the program. Once we sent out the evaluation, it probably only took a couple weeks of prompting to get the guys to fill that out and send it back, and then we spent probably another month after we got that doing a little bit of analysis with the help from my IT department. They ran it through some programs that they had to help us. So that exploration process took about a year, and then we focused on DESTINI Estimator for a couple months before we actually pulled the trigger and signed a contract to move forward with Estimator.
Okay. And then we have several questions around the 2D feature and kind of just comparing it to OSP. I know that you're not, you're not in that phase yet, but can you speak to kind of the feedback you've heard around that so far, or what you have seen from the 2D and 3D takeoff?
From the little bit I've been exposed to it, and from talking to our implementation guys with Beck Technologies, where it sits right now, it's pretty well, they say it's on par with Bluebeam. So anyone that uses Bluebeam for takeoff, it's at about a level, so not as powerful as on-screen takeoff. There are some enhancements that we've been told will be coming out in the first release in 2018. So that was kind of one of the other reasons why we've pushed off the 2D takeoff to our estimating group until after that first release comes out, because I don't think it'll quite be on par with on-screen takeoff, but it sounds like features will get it a little closer between Bluebeam and on-screen takeoff. For the PlanSwift users out there, I'm not familiar with that program, so I can't really say how it relates with PlanSwift.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and end this presentation, but if we didn't get to your question, Brian or I will follow up with you after this. Thank you for attending, and thanks, Brian, for sharing your experience with everyone.
Thank you.